December 28th, Thursday, 2017. It is day 343 in the Donald Trump Zionist regime. Donald Trump knows a little bit about inflation. He knows you'll go bankrupt. If you don't have enough inflation, you will go bankrupt. He's pretty much an expert on that. But I'm kind of concerned about Donald Trump. He's not looking very good, and he seems to be rambling. Says here on his last interview out on the golf course, he was rambling. You can tell by his looks, he's under a whole lot of stress. He doesn't seem to be thinking clearly. He thinks that Mueller is going to treat him fairly. Really? That's just a little bit too much optimism. He could be not rational, delusional. Mueller is not there to treat him fairly, I don't believe. Best case scenario, Mueller is there to slow Trump down, to compromise him, to say, hey, you're going to do it our way. That's the best case scenario. Worst case scenario, Mueller's there to remove him from the White House. That's my opinion. So Donald Trump is threatening China. China was caught delivering oil to North Korea. For God's sake, isn't it the winter time? It's got to be pretty damn cold in North Korea. Why in the hell do Americans care if North Korea has some goddamn oil? What do we want to do? Freeze them to death? How screwed up, how evil are these government people? No, North Korea, you cannot have no oil. We'd like your people to freeze to death. Come on. These people are not thinking clearly. And look at this tweet in the middle here, Vanity Fair tweet. None of it makes any sense. Does this look like a tweet that the United States of America, the President of the United States would write a goddamn tweet like this? It doesn't even make any sense. Vanity Fair, I'll put a little plug in for Vanity Fair, which it looks like is on his last legs, is bending over backwards and apologizing for minor hit they took on Crooked H. Anna Wintour, who was all set to be ambassador to Court of St. James, big fundraiser, CH is beside herself, blah, 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 and blah. What the hell is this nutcase talking about? Seriously, don't we have some better priorities? Don't we have some more important priorities in life, like the 95 million Americans who don't have a job? They cannot afford the rent from Slumlord Kushner, the 36-year-old slumlord, rat-infested properties. He borrows $300 million from a fake Federal Reserve banking system. Donald Trump is worried about Vanity Fair and some old witch has-been Hillary who's out in the woods, and we got 95 million Americans who out of the workforce, 50 million on SNAP cards, welfare, McDonald's jobs, waiters jobs, and this son of a bitch is worried about Vanity Fair. I just put my head in my hands, and I'm at a loss. I just don't understand these retards. I really do wish they just went back to Manhattan and their cocktail parties in Manhattan. Well, who knows? Maybe pretty soon. Mueller is digging. I think I see where Mueller is going with this. He's moving in on the Kushner internet digital team, which in Trump's tiny little brain, Donald Trump actually believes that Kushner and his internet black ops team got him elected. Donald Trump still does not understand that a local dog catcher could have beaten Hillary Clinton, the witch, in a landslide. Seriously, you could have been a local dog catcher, a nobody, and a plumber, you could have beat Hillary. A landslide. Donald Trump beat her. He thought he was somebody. What kind of dumbass would actually vote for a witch? Nobody's going to vote for Hillary. Let me get back on track here. But I think Mueller is, we know he's going after Kushner, but the interesting part of this Mueller thing, going after the digital team, because, that's where Kushner was bragging. That's where everybody who bowed down to Kushner, you got Anthony Scaramucci, that stupid bastard thought that Kushner was, the second coming of, Kushner's not that bright, but everybody thought because of his internet black ops team, he got Donald Trump elected. Well, how about if they were working with the Russians, or more specifically, how about if they were working with the Russian-Israeli internet black ops team. Well, now this makes sense, doesn't it? This makes sense why Donald Trump is now saying, well, even if it was collusion, that's not against the law, is it? Now Donald Trump is actually saying that now. Well, even if it was collusion, that's not against the law, because I believe that Mueller is getting close to Kushner and his Russian-Israeli black ops mafia type connections. And, you know, hey, it's getting really, really hairy, isn't it? Matter of fact, a lot of the rats have already jumped the ship. A lot of them are leaving. I mean, Jared Kushner, I think he's just hanging around. I want to be there 1 year. I want to be in the White House 1 year. And then I'll get back to my rental business, the inflation. I borrow $300 million in the Federal Reserve banking cartel, and then I rent it out to the peons, the peasants, the unwashed masses, and I sit around drinking the cocktails in Manhattan. What do the governments fear? More specifically, let's take it one step further. What is the worst thing that Donald Trump fears? Jared Kushner, for that matter. Deflation. You see, it literally scares the hell out of them, because without inflation, the scam artists like Trump and Kushner, I mean, they live off the rent of poor people. They live off the rent. But if they did not get that rent, if inflation wasn't rampant, they'd go broke. And they'd have to live like you and I live. And God forbid that. So the bottom line is, deflation is the worst thing they fear. And that's why Donald Trump he has a little bit of confidence. Donald Trump thinks that the Federal Reserve banking cartel, all the people from New York, are behind him. I don't believe that to be a fact. I believe that they're nailing Donald Trump like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I mean, they'll keep on belting him until he goes down. Of course, the last one, you know what the knockout punch is, the Federal Reserve banking cartel. All they have to do is cause a recession. And then the stock market goes down, you lose your job, blah, blah, blah. Donald Trump gets blamed for it. I mean, so they're waiting. They're waiting for the last minute with the Federal Reserve banking cartel. I mean, if they have to, they're going to use that punch and they're going to knock him out with it. Donald Trump is way too optimistic. Donald Trump's going to find out that he put all his faith in these New Yorkers, these dual citizen New Yorkers. Donald Trump trusted them blindly, and he's going to learn the most valuable lesson of his life, that they're not to be trusted. No, they're not to be trusted at all. Matter of fact, they'd probably sell their mother to buy the building 666 on Manhattan Avenue. I mean, you just cannot trust these people. Well, you crawl into bed with dogs, you get up with fleas. It's that simple. And talk about wild rabid animals. I mean, Sessions. I mean, what is wrong with this man? What do they have on him? What do the bankers have on him, man? He's going to back up debtor's prison. Yes, if you're a deadbeat with no job and Burger King won't hire you, and you can't be a waiter and a waitress, and you're just not cut out to be a servant, and you can't pay your bills, and, well, we're going to put you in prison. And if you're smoking dope, we'll put you in prison. I mean, what in the hell is wrong with these 70-year-old morons? Seriously, I mean, they live up in the ivory towers. They live in the golden towers. The taxpayers pay their pensions. God forbid how big their pensions are for the rest of their goddamn life. They're going to have pensions out the yin-yang, and their kids go to private schools, and they dress like millionaires, and they live in, oh God. But they don't have a soul. They are soulless. They don't have any feelings. There are no damn good jobs out there. You gotta be a damn waiter or a waitress, McDonald's, Burger King. How in the hell are you going to pay your bills with inflation? I mean, the bank gives Jared Kushner $300 million for smiling. Jared Kushner, could you give me a smile? I'm your banker. That's good, Jared. That's a beautiful smile. Here's $300 million goddamn dollars, as we don't even have a damn job. We pick up the breadcrumbs, and Jeff Sessions wants to put us in jail because we got no damn money to pay the bills. Jesus Christ, what is wrong with America? Jeff Sessions and his generation, we are praying to God that they go on to the next, just go on, leave us. Go wherever 70-year-old assholes go. Leave America alone. You are driving a stake into the heart of America. You smoke a little green weed, but you're in prison. You can't pay your bills, but you're in prison. Take that goddamn government pension and shove it up your ass. Maybe Sessions needs to smoke a little weed. That's what they need. Maybe Donald Trump and Sessions need to smoke a little weed. Calm their ass down or something. So we'll just wind this segment down today, looking for some interesting news. Baltimore sets a new record. The unwashed masses, the poor peasants with no job. That's what the rich are scared of, aren't they? They think they got all these veterans, these Blackwater people coming back from the Middle East, and they're going to protect the rich. Yeah. I don't think it's going to really work that way. I know in Russia, what happened in Russia when it collapsed, I mean the USSR, when the USSR collapsed and the rich people brought in the black ops guys, the military guys to protect them, you know what happened? The military guys took over the mansion and they sent the rich bastards into the basement in the garage. That's what, the military guys in Russia, they said, we're taking over the house now, Mr. Orbanstein, whatever the Russian name is. You and your family will live in the garage. And if you don't like it, you see this AK-47? I don't think the rich people in America really understand what they're getting into. They better come to the negotiating table, and they better get here pretty damn quickly. It's only us true blue Americans who will be able to save their asses. When the shit hits the fan, the military's not going to help you. It's the true blue Americans, which you're screwing us. You're screwing us like there's no tomorrow. How do you feel? When the shit hits the fan, do you think I'm going to be backing you up, rich bastard? No. You should come to the negotiating table now and I will dictate my terms to you. Give up half of the loot. I want half of the goddamn loot, and I want it spread over the masses. The unwashed masses will take half of the stolen loot that you bastards took, you corporate son of a bitches. Call it whatever you want to. Universal basic income. I don't give a shit. But every single penny you corporations have was stolen by the Federal Reserve banking cartel. You pushed a button and you bought up every corporation in the world while we sat around and picked up the breadcrumbs. No. They don't want to give you universal basic income. They don't want to give you half of the stolen loot. They want you to barely get a minimum wage. We're going to raise the minimum wage. The problem is they're always behind the curve. Inflation went up 10 years ago. Inflation's been raging, but they don't talk about it. And they hide the inflation. That's the reoccurring pattern, isn't it? That's what the government's fear, deflation. So all they do is they create as much inflation as they can and they hide it from you, and then they give $300 million to their friends like Jared Kushner and Donald Trump, and he buys a piece of property and rents it out to you, and if you don't pay the rent now, they want to throw you in prison. And if you don't have the money to pay the rent, maybe you want to self-medicate and smoke a little weed, well, they'll throw you in prison again. It's a vicious, broken cycle of assholes. But Donald Trump, it's not a crime. It's not a crime what I'm doing. My 6 bankruptcies, it was not a crime. I had 12 lawyers working on it. I must be one of the most brilliant bastards in the United States of America. I mean, I was able to steal millions of dollars from the bankers. I didn't pay them back. My lawyers got me off with 6 bankruptcies. Here I am, the President of the United States. Who could be greater than me, Donald Trump, the biggest narcissist that ever walked into the White House? Who takes advice from a 36-year-old slumlord. I mean, oh man, if this ain't the Twilight Zone, I don't know what is. Matter of fact, if we went back to the 1960s when they had some factories on the Ohio River, and there might have been a Twilight Zone episode, and he came out, Rod Sterling came out and said, there's this reality TV star, I mean, and he's going to be the president of the United States, and he's going to play golf all the time, and he's going to take advice from a 36-year-old slumlord, it probably would not even be believable on the Twilight Zone. They probably would have laughed it off in the 1960s. Unbelievable. Could not happen. And did I mention that huge factory that broke ground today in America? That could employ 10,000 American deplorables. I mean, how in the hell are we going to get a factory to break ground when the bankers are giving 36-year-old punks $300 million to buy rundown, rat-infested apartments so you who do not have any money, who cannot rent it out, blah, 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 blah. Unbelievable. Every so often, we have a conversation here about China and their currency. Today, I would like to talk about some old Chinese bonds that were issued in 1913. They were backed by gold and silver. And so before we get started, most people are confused about what SDRs are, what the IMF is, and the World Bank. But I like to kind of make it simple. Just think of China the way America was in the early 1900s. Before America became a superpower. I mean, make no mistake about it. The reason why America became a superpower is because of her ability to create government bonds, print a fiat currency, build up its military, and of course, we won the war. In World War II, we won the war. Europe's factories were decimated. No factories in Europe, and we were far away from the war zone, and all our factories were still standing. So that's how we became an empire. Think of China the same thing as early in our days. So anyhow, China is going to be selling bonds, but what a lot of people don't realize is China issued some bonds back in 1913. Again, they were backed by gold and silver, but they were not honored. That's the thing. I'm going to show you. Here's one of the bonds from the 1938. And again, they were issued in 1913. They were to mature in 1960. And what you're looking at here is the coupon. If you bought these bonds, and people bought these bonds all over the world, these bonds were marketed on Wall Street. Yes, Wall Street, no less. Anyhow, you bought these bonds, you clipped off, you see the little coupon there? You clipped off the coupon every year, you handed it in to the Chinese government, and they paid you your interest due. As you can see, it says 1938 there. Now, here's the problem. You see a lot of these coupons were not redeemed because China did not honor them. They defaulted. They defaulted in 1938, actually. And let's go into exactly why they defaulted. Now, I'll just let you look at some of the payoff numbers. I mean, these are historic documents. These are the real McCoy. Okay, so real quickly, why don't we talk about why these bonds were not honored? Why they stopped paying them. For one thing, the war broke out and you had Japan. Japan actually came into China and they started to loot all the gold. So China was losing their gold. As I said, Japan stole it. Now Japan took a lot of that gold and they hid it in the Philippines. If you ever wonder why the Marcos family was so rich, and then eventually, the deep state, we're talking America, took the gold away from the Marcos family, and then that gold was stored under the Twin Towers until it was stolen, or should I say it was appropriated before, you know what happened with the Twin Towers. So it is amazing that how these bonds you're looking at here are associated with the Twin Towers. These bonds are also associated with the American debt ceiling. I mean, obviously, this is all too complicated to talk about in a small little video like this, but it's worth mentioning that our debt ceiling, when the politicians are debating the debt ceiling crisis, they have China and China's new bond program and China entering the IMF, all of that is connected in America's debt problem, whereas China now is joining the IMF. Their yuan currency is going to be part of the SDR, the basket of international currencies. And what does this mean? This is just another nail in the coffin of the Federal Reserve note. I mean, think about it. But okay, let's get back on track. We're talking about these bonds. These are the coupons, as I said earlier. Every year you could clip these coupons off and hand them in to the Chinese government, and you would get your 5% interest payment. That's what these bonds were rated at. They were like a 5% interest rate, backed by gold and silver. Okay, but so what we've established so far is the Japanese came in and was stealing the gold before World War II, right before World War II and during the war. And then, to make matters worse, after the war, then you have Chiang Kai-shek. Chiang Kai-shek, you know who he is. And when he went to Taiwan, Taiwan at the time was called Formosa, Chiang Kai-shek fled to Taiwan. He took a lot of gold with him. So, I mean, I'm not making up any excuses for China not honoring these bonds, but I guess there is an argument to say, I mean, who actually has an obligation to pay off these bonds? I guess there's an argument to had that says, hey, possibly Taiwan has some responsibility in settling these old unpaid debts because Chiang Kai-shek took the gold with him. So I guess it is worth noting that it is also illegal, I believe, to buy any new Chinese bonds. If you go technically in American law, you're not really allowed to buy any new Chinese bonds until all the previous bonds have been settled. So that is worth noting that eventually these bonds will have to be settled, won't they? Okay, so let's talk about this. What's going on right for the last decade or so, probably the last almost 20 years, there's a massive restructuring going on throughout the whole entire world. A massive restructuring. Things are changing. I mean, it's a major reset. This major reset is in action, or should I say it's a work in progress. It's very difficult when you're going to change the world's currency situation. I mean, you got America. The dollar has been the reserve currency since 1913 almost. Okay, so that's changing. Of course, they can and they will change the rules at any moment in time to their liking. See, they control the rules. The governments make up the rules, so they will change the rules to their liking. They don't care what you and I think. And of course, Donald Trump was brought in because he is an expert on bankruptcy. Think about it. America, we are slowly going through a bankruptcy. They thought Donald Trump was the best person to handle this bankruptcy because, I mean, is there anybody who knows more about bankruptcy than Donald Trump? What do you have, 5 or 6 of them? But they don't want to tell the world, they don't want to tell the people that. They cannot, the deep state and the elite, they don't want to tell the people, yes, we brought Donald Trump in, even though he's an asshole, because he knows a little bit about bankruptcy, a massive restructuring. Okay, I don't want to beat a dead horse there, but we have to understand what's happening. As China is being lifted up, they are growing, they have all the factories, America is going through a bankruptcy. So why don't we quickly do a recap and summarize this little conversation here on how Asia and China are going to be more important on the world stage, and America is going to have a lot less influence after the completion of this reset or this bankruptcy. So after Donald Trump gets done with us, we're going to have a lot less influence, and maybe that could be a good thing. Why do we need to be influencing the world? Why do we need to be policing the world? We don't. Maybe then we can actually focus on Americans. I mean, I won't hold my breath. I'm not optimistic that these people want to help you and I. But anyhow, I don't want to get off course here. Let's summarize. There's one thing I have to mention, that China did settle these coupons and settle these bonds with the United Kingdom. The people of England it was settled. I believe I've heard numbers like they settled for 10%, and I've heard numbers where they were settled for 35%. But the bottom line is that China honored these coupons or settled their debt with the United Kingdom, but there was a catch. The United Kingdom had to give back Hong Kong. So China's not stupid. When they pay out money, they want something in return. So it is worth noting that the Brits got their money, or got 35% of their money, after they returned Hong Kong. Now, we should also mention that during the IMF deal, the 2010 IMF Code of Reforms. So when everybody made a decision that China was coming into the IMF, that the yuan was going to be part of the SDR basket of currency, they made a deal. And the deal was that eventually China was going to have to honor these coupons, this debt that goes back to 1913. So now, I don't think that you're going to get paid full dollar, of course, because when you're talking about the time that has elapsed, the penalties, you're only going to get no more than probably 35 cents on the dollar. So okay, let me see here. From 1911 to 1942, these bonds were marketed and sold on Wall Street. Let's not forget. Now, possibly through the war they might have stopped it, but from 1911 up until the war, Wall Street actually marketed and sold these things. So there are many, many Americans, families, who have these bonds, and these coupons were not redeemed. Eventually, I would hope that anybody who holds these coupons, the American citizens, world citizens, are going to get paid. So we have established that the Brits got paid, but they had to give up Hong Kong. Makes you wonder, what is the United States going to have to give up? Maybe we'll have to give up Nevada. Yeah. Harry Reid would be okay with it. Yeah, go ahead and take Nevada, take our gold, take our silver, and then please redeem your coupons. And we should also mention this also, that sovereign debt is not supposed to have a statute of limitations. Think about it. I mean, no statute of limitations on sovereign debt, but hey, they make up the rules and they can change them anytime they like. But on a final note here, I would like to say this. When you actually factor in inflation, when inflation is put into the equation, governments really never do pay off their debt legitimately, do they? I mean, it's a scam. Look, these were supposed to be backed by gold and silver. Here we are, almost 100 years later, and they may or may not pay them off. You're not going to get gold. You're not going to get silver. There's not going to be any penalties because they make the rules. So hey, inflation, that's the dirty little secret. The governments issue debt, but by the time they pay it off in full, I mean, think about it. It's not legitimate. So the question is not if the Chinese will settle their debts and pay off their gold-backed Chinese bonds, but the question is, how much fiat currency will you receive, or will your grandchildren receive?